1 year after the world said goodbye to Bob Newhart, the silence surrounding his absence still felt heavy, and for months fans held on to memories, interviews, and reruns that kept his gentle humor alive. Yet behind the laughter that defined his career was a private period of reflection for his family, who had remained largely out of the spotlight while processing their loss. When they finally chose to speak, their words carried a quiet honesty that resonated deeply. They confirmed what many had already sensed, that Bob Newhart's absence was not just a loss of a legendary comedian, but the departure of a steady, grounding presence whose influence stretched far beyond television. Known for his soft-spoken delivery and impeccable timing, Bob built a career on understatement. But in his personal life he was described as warm, attentive, and deeply devoted to those closest to him. Over the year following his passing, his family reflected on how he shaped their lives not through grand gestures, but through consistency, kindness, and humor that softened even the most difficult days. They spoke about the empty chair at gatherings, the quiet moments where his gentle observations would once bring laughter, and the realization that his calm presence had been the glue holding countless memories together. For fans, this confirmation carried emotional weight, reinforcing that the man who brought comfort through comedy also offered the same reassurance at home. His family's words painted a picture of someone who valued simplicity, who preferred intimate conversations over spotlight attention, and who remained humble despite decades of success. As they shared stories, it became clear that Bob's legacy was not only defined by iconic roles and unforgettable performances, but by the way he made people feel relaxed, understood, and connected. The passing of time did not lessen that impact. Instead, it deepened appreciation for the quiet brilliance that defined him. 1 year later, the confirmation from his family was not about shock, but about acceptance, acknowledging that the world had truly lost a rare voice whose humor never needed volume, only sincerity. Their reflections reminded everyone that behind the beloved persona was a husband, father, and friend who left an irreplaceable space. In remembering him, both family and fans found comfort in the same truth. Bob Newhart's legacy lives on not only in the laughter he created, but in the calm, thoughtful spirit that continues to resonate, proving that sometimes the softest voices leave the strongest echoes as the days turned into months following Bob Newhart's passing. The weight of absence settled into the routines of those who knew him best. His family, who had spent decades quietly observing the gentle humor and understated brilliance that defined him, began to recognize a profound void left behind. Bob's influence had never been loud or ostentatious. It was subtle, threaded through conversations, small acts of thoughtfulness, and the unassuming way he offered comfort and guidance. Over the course of the year, they began to piece together the depth of what had been lost. Not merely a public figure adored for his comedic timing in television roles, but a man whose very presence carried reassurance and a quiet wisdom. Family dinners felt emptier. Anecdotes once punctuated by his dry, clever commentary now lingered in silence, and moments that once seemed ordinary revealed themselves as extraordinary through memory.in interviews and private reflections. Bob Newhart's family described how his humor was inseparable from his humanity. His comedic style, measured, deliberate, and often understated, mirrored his personal philosophy: observation over exaggeration, patience over impulsivity, and kindness over attention-seeking. These qualities, they explained, had created a home environment filled with warmth and stability, a stark contrast to the high-energy, spotlight-driven world of Hollywood. His quiet leadership within the family, often unnoticed by the public, had shaped relationships, offering guidance and support without ever overshadowing others. The confirmation, then, of his absence was not just a factual acknowledgement of death, but an emotional reckoning with the loss of the everyday presence that had silently held so much together. Friends and colleagues echoed similar sentiments, noting that Bob's unique ability to balance humor with empathy had always extended beyond the stage. Whether mentoring younger performers, supporting his collaborators, or simply listening without judgment, he offered a model of generosity and humility rare in the entertainment world. 1 year later, the acknowledgement from those closest to him underscored that his contributions were not confined to awards or ratings, but to the lasting impact of his character on screen, in public, and most profoundly, in private life. The public, too, felt the weight of this confirmation. Fans revisited his work with a new perspective, recognizing not just a comedic genius, but the human being whose integrity and gentleness were inseparable from his humor. They shared memories of watching his shows, laughing at his timing, and feeling the comforting cadence of his voice, a reminder that humor can heal, connect, and endure. The revelation from his family served as a bridge between the private grief they experienced and the collective mourning of a generation of viewers who had grown up with Bob as a fixture in their lives. Ultimately, the family's confirmation marked a moment of collective reflection, an acknowledgement that Bob Newhart's loss was profound not only for the entertainment industry, but for the countless individuals whose lives were touched by his presence, whether through laughter, guidance, or quiet support. Even as the world mourned, his legacy endured, one measured not in applause or accolades, but in the subtle, enduring ways he shaped hearts, both within his family and across audiences worldwide. In the years since his passing, it became clear that Bob Newhart's true brilliance lay not just in his comedic timing, but in the life he quietly lived, a life that continues to inspire, comfort, and resonate, proving that sometimes the most enduring legacies are built not through grand gestures, but through consistent, thoughtful presence. Even as time passed, Bob Newhart's absence remained palpable in the smallest, most intimate moments his family remembered. Simple routines, a shared cup of coffee in the morning, a quiet conversation in the evening, or the sound of his distinctive laugh, were now memories, vivid but achingly unreachable. His family spoke candidly about the adjustment, the way everyday life felt incomplete without his measured presence. 1 year later, they reflected on how much of their lives had been quietly anchored by Bob's steady personality. His humor had been more than entertainment. It had been a coping mechanism, a subtle balm that diffused tension and brought joy in moments that might otherwise have been difficult. That same gentle humor, which the public adored on television, had carried through the most mundane and challenging aspects of family life. His passing left a void that reminded them how indispensable his calm, thoughtful nature had been, not just in crafting laughter, but in crafting stability, patience, and love. The confirmation from his family revealed something deeper than mere loss. It highlighted the profound influence Bob had on shaping the emotional lives of those closest to him. They recounted how he handled challenges with quiet wisdom, turning potential arguments or stressful moments into opportunities for perspective and understanding. Where some might have been loud, he was measured. Where others might have demanded attention, he observed and offered insight with gentle humor. This approach left an indelible mark, teaching those around him the value of patience, listening, and empathy. As his family shared these insights, it became apparent that his legacy was not confined to television screens but lived in the hearts of those he touched directly every day. Fans, too, felt the resonance of this truth. Social media threads, fan letters, and public reflections poured in as people recounted how Bob Newhart's work had shaped their lives, often in subtle ways. Viewers described the comfort of watching him perform, the way his soft-spoken timing could diffuse tension, or how his observational humor mirrored their own experiences. 1 year later, this collective reflection deepened, as fans began to see the connection between the on-screen persona and the private man his family described. The humor that had entertained millions was inseparable from the humility, thoughtfulness, and warmth that defined his personal life. The family's word confirmed what audiences had long sensed. Bob Newhart's genius lay not in spectacle, but in subtlety, not in volume, but in precision, not in flamboyance, but in quiet humanity. Bob's colleagues echoed these sentiments, painting a picture of a man whose influence extended far beyond jokes and scripts. Writers, producers, and fellow performers spoke of his generosity, mentorship, and uncanny ability to bring out the best in others. Even in moments of creative disagreement, his calm demeanor and keen sense of timing guided interactions toward collaboration rather than conflict. This rare combination of comedic brilliance and human humility made him a linchpin in the television industry. 1 year after his passing, these reflections highlighted the duality of his life. The public persona adored by millions, and the private man who, in silence and consistency, profoundly shaped the lives of those around him. The confirmation from his family also underscored a universal truth about loss, fame, and remembrance. While the world celebrated his career achievements, those who lived with him daily knew the quieter impact, the small, consistent gestures of care, the laughter shared in private, the stability he provided. It was this combination of public influence and private devotion that made Bob Newhart an icon not only of comedy but of human connection. Over the year following his passing, his family learned to honor both aspects of his legacy, recognizing that remembrance is not solely about the moments recorded on camera, but also about the enduring presence that shaped hearts and minds in ways far subtler, yet infinitely more powerful. That I am recounting this journey. it becomes clear that Bob Newhart's story is a testament to the enduring power of consistency, humility, and kindness. Even as the world mourned, his family's reflections illuminated the depth of what had been lost and the magnitude of what had been given. Bob's life, marked by understated brilliance, quiet guidance, and relentless devotion, reminded everyone that true legacy is built not only through fame or accolades, but through the lives touched, the heart steadied, and the laughter shared in both public and private moments. 1 year after Bob Newhart's passing, his family reflected not only on the absence itself, but on the unique ways he shaped their lives in ordinary, often invisible moments. They spoke of the quiet strength he offered, how his presence could calm tension without a word, how a simple glance or soft-spoken remark could shift the energy in a room, and how his humor, understated yet precise, became a lifeline in difficult times. In family gatherings, where his laugh once punctuated conversations and softened arguments, there now lingered a silence that highlighted the magnitude of what had been lost. His absence was felt not in grand gestures, but in the steady rhythm of daily life, a rhythm that had quietly revolved around his thoughtful attention and warmth. The realization struck his loved ones that the man they had relied on for decades to anchor their lives was no longer there, and that the comfort he provided could not be replaced. Yet within the grief, there was also profound admiration. Bob Newhart's family emphasized that the very qualities that made him a beloved public figure were inseparable from the ways he nurtured and cared for them privately. His comedic timing mirrored his life philosophy. Patience, observation, and subtlety were tools he wielded both on screen and at home. They recounted instances of how he listened more than he spoke, how he guided rather than commanded, and how he found humor not in ridicule but in the gentle observation of life quirks. These stories painted a picture of a man who had built his legacy quietly, whose greatest performances were sometimes not on television, but in the living room, the dinner table, or the quiet moments of family life where he offered reassurance without ever needing recognition. Fans, too, began to see the deeper dimensions of his life as the anniversary of his passing approached. Social media was filled with personal stories, people describing the first time they heard his voice on television, how his comedy had been a companion in lonely or stressful times, and how the same understated humor that defined his shows also seemed to provide guidance and comfort. One viewer recalled watching Bob on the Bob Newhart Show as a teenager, noting how his calm delivery made chaotic family situations seem manageable by comparison. Another shared that his dry wit had helped him navigate the anxieties of adulthood, teaching lessons about patience, perspective, and finding humor in the everyday. In these reflections, it became evident that Bob Newhart's influence transcended entertainment. It shaped the way people viewed the world and approached life's challenges. Within the entertainment industry, colleagues shared similar admiration. Writers, producers, and fellow performers recounted the generosity and humility that defined Bob Newhart behind the scenes. He was known for mentoring younger actors, offering guidance and support without ever overshadowing their own voices. Even in moments of creative conflict, he used calm observation rather than forceful argument, demonstrating a rare form of leadership grounded in respect and empathy. One producer recalled a time when a live show segment went off-script, yet Bob's ability to seamlessly adjust not only salvaged a moment but elevated it, leaving everyone in awe. These anecdotes reinforce what his family had said, that Bob's brilliance was not merely in his timing or delivery, but in his humanity, his capacity to create connection, inspire confidence, and offer comfort. Today, as his family spoke 1 year later, the themes of resilience, humility, and warmth were central. They describe how his absence reshaped their lives, not through dramatic loss, but through the subtle emptiness left by the absence of his presence. They spoke of how they carried forward his lessons, the importance of kindness, of patience, and of finding humor even in difficult circumstances. In this reflection, the family offered more than confirmation of loss. They offered insight into the essence of Bob Newhart's character, showing how a life lived with consistency, compassion, and understated brilliance can leave an enduring mark long after the spotlight fades. Bob Newhart's legacy, as confirmed by his family 1 year later, is therefore multifaceted. It is found in the laughter he inspired on screen, in the comfort he brought to countless viewers, and in the quiet guidance he provided to his loved ones. It is found in the patience, thoughtfulness, and humility that characterized both his personal and professional life. And it is found in the enduring example he set for those who followed him, reminding us that influence is not always loud, and that the most profound impact often comes from subtlety, consistency, and the courage to be human in every moment, Even a year after Bob Newhart's passing, his family recalled moments that revealed the quiet depth of his character, the subtleties that viewers never saw but that shaped their daily lives. They spoke of his routines, simple habits that reflected both discipline and care. Mornings often began with coffee and a reflective conversation. Evenings ended with shared stories or jokes that lightened the day, and even during stressful moments, Bob maintained a calm demeanor that reassured those around him. These ordinary gestures, so easily overlooked, became extraordinary in retrospect. His absence highlighted just how much these small routines had anchored the family, providing stability and continuity that many never consciously noticed until it was gone. One anecdote shared by his daughter revealed how Bob could turn mundane moments into lessons in patience and humor. During a family gathering, a minor disagreement over plans could have escalated, but Bob's quiet observation, paired with a witty comment delivered with perfect timing, would diffuse tension and bring laughter. His family realized that these moments were emblematic of his approach to life, measured, empathetic, and humorous without being harsh. Over the year, these reflections became not just stories of nostalgia but lessons in how to live with grace under pressure. It became evident that his genius for timing and what extended far beyond television scripts. It was embedded in the way he navigated real-life colleagues and friends contributed further insight into Bob's personal philosophy. Many recalled how his generosity of spirit extended to mentoring young talent, offering advice that was both practical and encouraging without ever seeking recognition for his guidance. One writer from the Bob Newhart Show recounted how Bob would quietly observe rehearsals, then offer a single suggestion that transformed an entire scene. His approach was subtle but impactful, demonstrating that influence did not need to be loud or commanding to be powerful. In interviews, these colleagues emphasized that the calm, understated approach that audiences adored on television was consistent in his personal and professional life. This rare alignment of public and private persona added to the respect and affection surrounding him. Fans also contributed to the narrative of his enduring legacy. Social media and online forums filled with messages of appreciation as people reflected on the way his comedy had shaped their lives. One fan shared how Bob's observational humor had helped him navigate anxiety, turning moments of uncertainty into opportunities to laugh at life's absurdities. Another described how, during a period of isolation, watching episodes of the Bob Newhart Show provided comfort and a sense of companionship, demonstrating that his presence on screen could bridge physical distance and emotional loneliness. The year following his death made these connections even more poignant, as fans collectively recognized that Bob Newhart's impact extended far beyond ratings and awards. It resided in the daily lives of the people he entertained. The confirmation from his family also underscored a deeper truth about human legacy. While fame and accolades are tangible and measurable, the true imprint of a life often lies in the intangible, how one shapes relationships, influences others, and provides quiet support in moments that matter most. Bob Newhart's family emphasized that his life exemplified this principle. They recounted the subtle ways he guided, comforted, and connected with those around him, revealing that his legacy was as much about emotional intelligence and kindness as it was about comedy. This reflection resonated not only with fans, but with anyone seeking to understand the difference between fleeting success and enduring impact. Ultimately, 1 year after Bob Newhart's passing, the world learned what his family always knew, that his absence was profound, yet the lessons and influence he left behind were enduring. His life demonstrated that humor can heal, presence can comfort, and authenticity can inspire generations. Even in grief, his family and fans alike found solace in the continuity of his legacy, the subtle guidance, the laughter, the calm authority, and the gentle humanity that defined him. Bob Newhart's story is a reminder that greatness is not only measured by applause or fame, but by the quiet, persistent ways one touches the lives of others, leaving an imprint that persists long after the final curtain falls. As the months turned into a full year, Bob Newhart's family reflected not only on the absence of his presence, but on the extraordinary consistency with which he approached life. They described how, even after decades in the spotlight, he remained a man of routine and principle. Whether it were preparing for a family dinner, engaging in quiet reflection in the early morning hours, or offering subtle humor in tense situations, Bob's actions were deliberate, thoughtful, and deeply human. He had the ability to diffuse conflict with a well-timed word or gesture, to turn small disagreements into teachable moments, and to create laughter without ever diminishing anyone's dignity. This consistency, they noted, was a hallmark of both his personality and his approach to work. Whether in the middle of a live broadcast or an ordinary day at home, Bob's presence was steady